You're listening to the No Bullshit Vegan Podcast, episode 223. Dr. Michael Klaper is here to talk about the need to educate young doctors and medical students on the importance of nutrition to heal their patients.
Welcome to the No Bullshit Vegan Podcast, myth-busting and evidence-based advice to help you kick butt with your health and fitness on a vegan diet. Here's your host, Karina Inkster.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm Karina, your go-to no BS vegan fitness and nutrition coach. Thanks for tuning in. If you're tired of piecing together random fitness advice from the internet and you want actual expert support from real humans who care about you and your goals, our coaching programs might be exactly what you need. My team and I help vegans and veg-curious folks as well build strength, improve nutrition, and create sustainable habits that fit real life. No body shaming, no gimmicks, and no AI-generated workouts or coaching. Head to karinainkster.com/coaching to learn more and apply. That's karinainkster.com/coaching. My guest today is Dr. Michael A. Klaper. Dr. Klaper is a graduate of the University of Illinois College of Medicine in Chicago. He's practiced acute care medicine in Hawaii, Canada, California, Florida, and New Zealand. And for the past 35 years, has been focusing on health-promoting food and lifestyle choices to help prevent the need for hospitalization and surgery. Through his website, Moving Medicine Forward at movingmedforward.org, visitors can find updates on his latest teaching activities, subscribe to his free newsletter, The Forward Report, and support his Moving Medicine Forward initiative to promote the teaching of applied nutrition in medical schools. Dr. Klaper's favorite vegan meals are soups and salads with tofu. Here's our conversation. Dr. Klaper, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me today. Great to have you here.
Oh, lovely to be with you and your viewers. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about your new project and what you've been up to and all the amazing work you do in the vegan world. You're basically an institution that everyone who's vegan should know about if they don't already. So thank you for the amazing work you do. But I want to start with your vegan story. Mm-hmm. How did you even come to eating plant-based? Was there a catalyst of some kind? What's the backstory?
Try to keep it from being too long. I grew up eating a standard Western diet, and I spent my first 16 summers on my uncle's dairy farm in northern Wisconsin, milking cows and driving tractors and slinging hay bales and chopping heads off chickens and doing things that are required to put meat on the table. And well, that's just farm life, and you know that. But my heart was still aching. I love the animals. We had certainly the cows and the chickens and the pigs, but also the wild animals, the foxes and the mink and the salamanders were all around. It was the natural world was so vibrant. I really fell in love with the life force, and I was the kid in the group, my cousins, who always want to make sure everybody's okay. If somebody cut themselves, they want to put the bandage on their finger there. And so between the two of my love of science and biology and my caring for people and animals, it was natural I became a physician. And for the first 8 years of my medical career, I practiced regular blood and guts medicine in emergency rooms, operating rooms. And I thought I'd be doing that the rest of my career. But a couple of things happened after almost 8 years in general practice. I became so disillusioned, despite my best efforts as a young doctor and my wagging my finger to take your blood pressure pills, take your insulin dose. My patients were getting sicker and more obese and getting strokes and heart attacks. I felt like such a failure as a physician that I left general practice, my first love, and decided to become an anesthesiologist at Vancouver General Hospital. And it was during my years as an anesthesia resident that two events happened that moved me firmly into the vegan camp. During my third year of anesthesia residency, I was on the cardiovascular anesthesia service, dealing with people's hearts and blood vessels. And day after day, I'm putting people to sleep and watching surgeons open their chests and out of their arteries and their heart pull this yellow, greasy gunk called atherosclerosis out of their artery walls. This was 1981. There was already studies in the journal showing that this is largely the fat of the animals these folks are eating, and you can melt it away with a whole food plant-based diet. I saw the first report in 1977, actually, about this. And my dad died of clogged arteries. I know I've got those genes. I had a real interest to making sure that wasn't my body on that operating table with that striker saw going out my chest. And so I was getting messages from my left brain, you should adopt a plant-based diet, or it's you on that operating table. During that same period, I was out for dinner with another anesthesia resident, pontificating about living a life of nonviolence, which was a real passion for me after I spent my Saturday nights in medical school in the trauma unit at Cook County Hospital and saw the worst of what people do to each other. I wanted to get the violence out of my own life, and so I'm adopting the life of ahimsa, so I thought, but I'm pontificating about this noble endeavor while polishing off a porterhouse steak at the local keg in Klaper. My dinner partner looks at me with great compassion and says, that's all very nice, Michael, but if you want to get the violence out of your life, you might want to start with that piece of meat on your plate, because in satisfying your taste for the desire for the taste of flesh in your mouth, which is really what this is about, you are paying for the death of the animal and for the next one in line at the slaughterhouse. Well, as soon as you said that, all the old rationalization jumped into my head. The animal's dead already, and that's what they raise them for. But before I could get the words out of my lips, the little voice in my head said, he's right. He's right. And when I went out to pay for the steak dinner, I felt complicit in a crime because I love those big, beautiful cows. I love the animals, and that I'm paying for their death. It was just breaking my heart. And so between what my left brain was seeing in the operating room about adopting a plant-based diet and what I knew in my heart that night, I knew that was the end of my meat eating. Dairy followed shortly after when I realized the cruelty of that industry. So I stopped eating meat and dairy products and adopted a whole plant diet. Well, my body loved it. Within 12 weeks, 10 kilos spare tire of fat around my waist melted away. My high blood pressure went to normal. My cholesterol went to normal. I felt great waking up in a nice lean body every day. And the light went on. Now I realize why all my patients were getting fatter and sicker in general practice from what they were freaking eating every 4 hours. And running through their bloodstream was clogging them up and causing inflammation. And I realized what the real treatment for these folks are. And so at that point, I knew I didn't want to be an anesthesiologist and spend my career putting people to sleep, literally. Mm-hmm. I'd go back to general practice and help them wake up, right? And so I did, much to the dismay of my parents, with 6 months left to go in my anesthesia residency. Do you know the money you are giving up? But it wasn't in truth. I'm a GP in my heart, and I had this understanding. I wanted to bring it to my patients. So I went back to general practice, found people in my area who could give plant-based cooking lessons, and I would refer my patients to them to learn how to do basic survival cooking, how to boil rice, how to make oatmeal, how to make salad dressing, simple stuff, but how to keep a plant-based food stream going. Well, those who could follow it, they experienced the same wonderful changes I did. They lost weight. Their high blood pressure came down. Their insulin receptors opened up. Their diabetes, type 2 diabetes, went away. And at that point, there's no looking back. A few weeks later, I was talking to a friend in Vancouver about this evolution I had been on, and she said, "Oh, you've become a vegan." I've never heard the word, but I was okay. I guess I'm vegan. No looking back after that, and so
that's amazing. So, how long ago was that? Like, how long has Dr. Klaper been vegan?
1981. So
wow.
45 years.
Well, no wonder you didn't know what vegan meant, because most people didn't know the word at that point.
Exactly. And boy, the health food stores looked very different back then. You wanted soy milk, you get a powder that you mixed into cold water there. And, oh my, it was bleak back.
Okay, not to like age you or anything, but you've been vegan for longer than I've been alive. Just saying.
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
I'm proud of that. I'm happy with that.
That's so cool.
Your mother didn't know. My mother didn't know.
No.
People didn't know. But now, once you know, kind of hard not to act on it.
Absolutely. So what do you think is different about how your brain operates? Because you did have the same initial pushback, and, we all have cognitive dissonance when someone brings us information that we are uncomfortable with. We try to rationalize our behaviors and, the animal's already dead, like you were saying. But you ended up changing your entire lifestyle and your habits and your behavior. Why doesn't everybody do that? Because a lot of people know the same information.
That's the question I get. Why doesn't everybody do that? Homo sapiens, we're a funny species. You would think, tell them once, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Don't eat meat, it hurts the animals. Oh, okay.
Right.
It hurts your arteries. Oh, all right, I'll stop doing that. Stop smoking. Okay, stop drinking alcohol. But again, we are creatures that are driven by so many things. The taste we develop as children are very powerful comfort food associations. Cheapness of fast foods in our society because they're subsidized. The culture, meat eating culture. You got to eat meat 3 times a day to get your protein. And all of that. And there's so many factors keeping those blinders on. But again, I ate meat for 35 years before the light went on, so you won't see me wagging my finger at our brothers and sisters who are still asleep. As the old anesthetists would say, they're still under anesthesia, still asleep.
I really like that analogy about, putting people to sleep and then changing your career again to wake them up again. It's one of my former podcast guest, Deb Gleason, she calls it the cultural coma of food. So it's the same idea of being asleep, not being conscious. That's just what we're told.
Yeah, it's a piece of steak on your plate.
Yeah.
It's a chicken breast, a drumstick. When we don't associate it, and the language has a lot to do with the euphemisms we really accept.
Yes.
Beef. Really, it's cow flesh.
Exactly. Yeah. So it really is a systemic issue here. I mean, we can make our own choices as individuals, but like you said, it's the system, it's the culture.
Exactly.
You went back to general practice. What kind of time frame is this?
Well, it's in 1986. I read a book by John Robbins called Diet for a New America.
Mm-hmm. Classic.
And it's a classic. And the book's in 3 parts. The first one, they talks about the animals and the amazing things that they do and the intelligence of the dolphins and the great parents. But we don't treat the animals very nice. And he takes us into the slaughterhouse. And this is when you order that steak or chicken in the restaurant, this is what you're paying for. So that light went on, though I was aware of that. And then he for a non-physician, went into a brilliant discussion about what a meat-based diet does to our bodies and the arteries and cancer rate, etc. But what really clinched it for me was I'm a passionate environmentalist from my years on the farm. And when he said, here is what industrial animal agriculture is doing to the planet, and that's why we're cutting down the trees, that's why we're sucking the rivers dry, that's why the soil is blowing away from the corn and soybean fields. And a meat-based diet is the driving force for all of this. Well, at that point, I was doing plant-based medicine, but I left to go join John Robbins and his organization called EarthSafe. And for the next 5 years, I was giving lectures on the environmental aspects of evolving to a plant-based diet. And then eventually, I had to pay the rent. Nobody pays you much for giving those lectures. So I've done plant-based general practice ever since. And it's the most satisfying kind of medicine because and I don't know if I enjoy being an iconoclast that breaks the old models, but they need to be broken because they're simply wrong. We in medical school, when it comes to high blood pressure, we're told these patients, there's no treatment, no cure for these patients. Will take these pills the rest of their lives. This is lifetime medication. Well, it's nonsense. These people, their arteries all clamped down. They're carrying extra weight that makes their heart pump at a higher pressure. Well, you get these folks on a whole food plant-based diet. They get leaner. Their arteries relax and open up. Their blood pressures come down. And not only can you get them off their blood pressure pills, you have to before they stand up and pass out on you. And same thing with the type 2 diabetes folks. They're insulin resistant because their insulin receptors in their cells are all clogged up with fat. Well, a whole food plant-based diet is naturally low in fat, or fruits and vegetables are. And you eat that for a few weeks, and the insulin receptors unclog, your own insulin kicks in. And not only can you get these people off their insulin, one's on insulin, always on insulin, nonsense. Not only can you get them off, you have to get them off before they have severe hyperglycemic reactions. Mm-hmm. So it made me rethink all of that. So what is health? What are we doing to the body? And like my late colleague, Dr. McDougall said, it's the food, it's the food, it's the food. So that's been my focus in my clinical work. But about 4 years ago, I'm saying, if I'm treating patients one at a time, that's all very nice, but it's too slow. What we need to get to are the freaking doctors, and they're a tough group for all sorts of reasons. They want to keep doing what they're doing. They're getting paid to do what they're doing. But what we really need to reach are the medical students, the first, second, third year med students who are just learning anatomy and physiology, to weave nutrition into their teaching before pharmacosclerosis sets into their brains. And
that's a good term.
Drugs and surgery, the only treatment. So I said, somebody should reach the medical students with this message. And the little voice says, how about you, Doc? So for the past 4 years, I've been going to the nation's medical schools and giving a lecture called What I Wish I Learned in Medical School About Nutrition. It's on our website, Moving Med Forward. The public is welcome to watch this lecture. Here's how, and I show them the science. Here's how a plant-based diet reverses high blood pressure. Here's how a plant-based diet dissolves atherosclerotic plaques. Here's how a plant-based diet reverses type 2 diabetes. And the students are wide-eyed and very accepting. I said, med school, you want to get those medical powers. You want to learn how to use antibiotics to make that pneumonia go away, and learn how to use diuretics to make the edema go away. This is the most powerful clinical tool you will ever use, because this actually reverses these diseases you're spending your career treating.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So this has been the last 4 years of your work.
Yes.
Have you seen a change within those 4 years in how people respond to this message?
Absolutely. Timely question. Since 2019, I was living in airports and hotels and medical schools giving a lecture. Then along comes COVID. And from 2020 on, with a left-handed gift from that virus, we wound up going online. And now I lectures around the world, but certainly across North America by Zoom. And we get very positive responses. When you ask if I've seen a change, well, first of all, the public is so ready for this. I don't know anybody who has any interaction with their doctor that does not come away thinking, why does my doctor know anything about nutrition? I have some, I get this carnivore rap or this keto rap from these doctors. And so the public is demanding it, absolutely. And the medical students are there. So many in my lectures, these young first, second, third year students, they've seen movies, they've seen Forks Over Knives, they've seen What the Health, the lights on. They know there's something cooking here with nutrition. They want the solid science behind it. So the medical students are ready and looking for it. And the culmination, the manifestation of that is our unique, remarkable Secretary of Health and Human Services, Mr. Kennedy, for all the things coming out of that office that really causes me distress and that I disagree with. I was slack-jawed when I heard that he had gotten a commitment from 53 of the nation's medical schools, that's a third of the nation's medical schools, to commit to providing 40 hours of nutrition education throughout the 4 years of medical school.
That's incredible.
It is. Now, that's 10 hours a year. That's not a whole lot. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But listen, it's a start. The door's open. That was a huge piece of encouraging news. Mm-hmm. Now, from those of us on the plant-based side who are aware of Mr. Kennedy's fondness for bear meat and other animal products, the question to us now is, well, what exactly is going to be taught in those hours. And I'm looking at it with great fascination because, show me the science. Show me any studies in the literature showing that a carnivore diet reverses atherosclerotic plaques. I want to see that study. That's not going to be there. But there's plenty of studies showing that a whole food plant-based diet can reverse type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. So we want to make sure that the plant-based science is solidly represented, at least given a fair, equal hearing. And so we have the list of those 53 medical schools in our nonprofit organization, Moving Medicine Forward. We are going to be riding herd on these 53 schools. We don't know exactly what it is they are proposing that they will be teaching in their curriculum. And we just want to make sure that, again, the plant-based message is given a fair hearing for sure. And finally, someone says, gee, Doc, that's good work. Why don't you write a book about it?
You did, didn't you?
And indeed, finally, after all these years, I've got around to putting this codification of this work in this book that I think is very readable, called Moving Medicine Forward. It explains a lot about what's happening in the body, the effect of people's daily diet on their body. But it's also a great gift to give your doctor, because I have a chapter there on a day in the disease reversal clinic. And I said, wouldn't it be nice if you walk in a big teaching hospital and you see the sign, orthopedic clinic, pediatric clinic, disease reversal clinic. And I say, in truth, every doctor's office should be a disease reversal clinic, because these diseases are so eminently reversible. It's from what they're eating in the first place. Get them on the plant-based diet we're designed to run on, and these diseases go. And doctors need to incorporate that and work with their patients. Part of this fun kind of medicine is I get to lean across the desk, talking to my cyber screen here, and say the words my conventionally trained colleagues never get to say. I get to say, I'd like to get rid of your type 2 diabetes. I'd like to get rid of your high blood pressure. I'd like to get rid of your lupus. Oh, really? You can do that? You sure, but we need to work together, and it has a lot to do with what you're eating here, but we'll make it fun and delicious. Are you willing to work with me? And become a partner. You incorporate the patient in their own healing, and they become the happiest patients you'll ever see. And I leave clinic, or I shut down my computer every session going, yes, you've really helped somebody. So I tell the young docs, I'm the happiest doctor I know. My patients get healthy. And you can be the happiest doctor you know, and the healthiest, because you should do it yourself. But starts with understanding that we're plant-eating hominids, and we have to honor that on every level.
Absolutely. That's super exciting. My doctor herself is not vegan, but very plant forward and, very cool with it.
We'll take that.
Her colleague at the same clinic is actually a friend of mine who is plant-based and does very similar things with her. Like, her whole family is vegan. They raise 2 vegan kids. They're amazing. So she does very similar things. She's a GP. She works with her clients. It's very collaborative, like you're saying. It's a perfect scenario. And I think this is becoming more common.
What a great sign that is. Those words would never have come out of your lips 5 years ago.
Probably not.
Absolutely not. It's such a sign that, yes, it's changing. The iceberg is melting. That's not a great image, but the ocean liner is, we're turning it on to a proper direction, because it's the truth. They say you can't keep a hat pin in a cloth bag for very long. The point comes out, and it's the truth of it. And it permeates everything, including our own health, the animals, the planet. It's the truth of it. The lights are flashing. Homo sapiens, you want to be healthy, you want to keep living on this planet, adopt a plant-based diet.
Yeah. There's a lot of pushback, though. I mean, I don't know if it's just because I live in a tiny little town. I'm from Vancouver originally, which is basically vegan Mecca, as you know.
Yes, right.
That's where I grew up. You can go to an entire restaurant that's vegan, and there's like 20 of them.
Yes.
It's amazing. So it's a pretty small population here in Powell River. Yes, there's vegans, but not very many. And I don't know if it's just like the small town vibe, but there's a lot of pushback and, plant-based is not healthy and you're not going to get all the nutrients you need, et cetera, et cetera. So what needs to change in the whole system for people like my friend who's the GP and yourself working with patients to normalize that?
Again, that's a huge, if not the issue, of course. And again, everything from from the cultural bent. We're on the West Coast. Still eat a lot of fish, but we kill our elk and our deer, and that's we're meat eating folks. And again, the meat is subsidized by the government, so those burgers cost $2 when they really should cost $45 if they had to pay for the carbon dioxide released and the water used and the soil that was eroded, et cetera, all the oil, the transport. And the doctors aren't helping. Well, we're a real bottleneck because doctors, they don't know anything about nutrition, and they're eating the same stuff themselves. They enjoy their filet mignon. They're not going to tell their patients not to. So there's lots of forces keeping the meat-based juggernaut continuing as is. It's easy to despair. We've seen the pendulum swing back and forth over the years. I've certainly seen lots of plant-based fads go through our community, and now the pendulum swing towards the meat carnivore folks there. And so what's going to change that? A couple of things, and they all have to do with the truth of the situation. And the two forces outside the truth itself that we have working for us. One, the science and the human body. People are capitalizing on the human foible of if it tastes good, it's good for me, and they like to taste a steak in their mouth and those juicy burgers. But the truth is, and now we're getting advice, meat's back, you can eat all the meat you want, eat all the bacon you want, and butter's good for you, etc. Well, packing the human intestine full of animal flesh 3 times a day is a recipe in my book for an epidemic of colon cancer. All those pieces of cooked meat have carcinogens on the surface that smear on the stomach wall, giving gastric cancers, and the colon wall, giving GI cancers. It's a recipe for an epidemic of heart attacks and strokes from the saturated fat they're eating, from this molecule called TMAO gets generated in their intestines from the bacteria summoned up by the meat. It's a recipe for vascular dementia. The arteries in the brain thicken and narrow. We're going to see a huge amount of dementia. When you eat the burgers, etc., you're eating a chemical from the meat-based bacteria called endotoxin, makes the gut leaky, that opens the door to autoimmune disease. They're going to get lupus and various autoimmune diseases. The bacteria summoned up by a meat-based diet put out very acidic and irritating byproducts that inflame the gut wall. It's an epidemic of colitis and Crohn's disease coming down the pike to them. And the microplastics that are permeating the meat supply here. These are broken up, not only plastic bags, etc., out in the ocean there, but these 10-mile-long fishing nets that the commercial fishing fleets cut loose, and they kill all sorts of rays and dolphins and turtles for a few years, and then they break up in the tropical sun and the storms as these tiny little particles. And they're taken up by the little fish, the anchovies and the sardines, that are eaten by the bigger fish, and then the predator fish, the salmon and the tuna. And so these microplastic particles accumulate in the fish flesh. So when people eat them, it gets into our bloodstream. We have no enzymes to get rid of plastic. And we don't know the effect of it yet, what it does to dementia risk and Parkinson's risk and cancer risk. And we know it increases blood clotting on the atherosclerotic plaques, increases the risk of heart attacks and strokes. And we're a big fish-eating community here. But the people say, well, I don't eat fish, so I'm okay. Actually not, because only half the fish catch winds up on restaurant menus and in supermarkets. The other half of the commercial fish catch is ground up and added to animal feed as a protein extender. And it's added to cattle feed and pig feed and chicken feed. And so the people eating these animals that wind up, they say the average North American consumes a credit card worth of plastic every week, 5 grams of plastic, the weight of a credit card. And we can't get rid of this stuff. as the truth of a meat-based diet, a flesh-heavy diet, starts making itself manifest. I'll put a $1,000 bill on the table. Within 36, 48 months, the medical journals are going to be erupting with articles. Carnivore diets increased risk of colon cancer. Paleo diet, increased risk of dementia. Meat-heavy diet, increased risk of Parkinson's, pick a disease. And suddenly those veggie burgers are going to look better. And that pendulum's going to hit the 6 o'clock news. The medical association is going to be making pronouncements. We're going to see big endorsements to start moving back in the plant-based direction. The second is the economics of it. We're paying billions and billions of dollars every year for medical care that's basically a black hole. The current medical care is Band-Aid medicine, very expensive. When I was on the cardiovascular anesthesia service, heavy-set guys that come in, big, thick chest walls, they do this procedure, a $500,000 procedure. They get post-op wound infections, they get pneumonias. By the time they limp out of the hospital, generate a bill of $500,000 for us so they can head right to McDonald's and start eating more burgers and wind up clogging up their grass. And nobody's getting healthier from these billions of dollars of health care. Now, we've got to start rewarding the doctors for keeping patients healthy. Mm-hmm. In the States, I encountered a plant-based insurance actuary. Yes, there are such people.
Interesting.
And over lunch, he said, Doc, every time we pay out for a 4-vessel coronary bypass, $250,000. So for every adult male who we insure who doesn't, and adult females who don't have a heart attack, we're sitting on those $250,000. We'll be glad. We'll pay the doctor $20,000 for keeping that patient healthy for 10 years. We'll pay the patient $20,000 for staying healthy for those 10, and we're still sitting on almost $200,000 profit here. Now, the bean counters, we got to change the way the beans are counted to reward both the medical people and the patients and the public for staying healthy. There are ways to do this. It's just money. It's just creative thinking, and we want to marshal the massive everything from the social media influencers to the sports stars to the movie star. I went plant-based. Well, I'm feeling good. There's ways to turn society. It can be done. And as I said, between the medical truth of it and the economics watch, we're going to see swerving the ocean liner towards the plant-based dock there.
I'm waiting for that to happen. I mean, with what's going on right now with keto and carnivore and all that BS, it cannot come soon enough.
Oh, it's embarrassing. As a doctor, it's embarrassing. And I want to commend you and your colleagues who are doing these wonderful podcasts, because we don't need another study showing that plant-based diet lowers high blood pressure. We know that. What we need is to educate the public so this is not so strange, or break down those walls, those stereotypes. And it's the podcasters like you that are practicing a very high form of preventive medicine here. And so I view you as a colleague. We're very important to get this message out, and you do it very well.
Well, thank you. And to your point earlier about normalizing plant-based eating and veganism, I think there's a lot of different ways of doing it. Athletes who make it known that they're operating on plants, people who have platforms, podcasting, making videos, whatever it might be. Radio apparently is still a thing. So we're also syndicated on radio. So you'll be on local Powell River radio. Right. So, any way that we can approach people, any media types that we can use to normalize and have discussions that are a little bit beyond, plant-based is good for you. Because I think people inherently know that now at this point.
Yes, they do.
It's just, what's the next step?
Exactly. And it's going to take some in the trenches work here. Now, I really have to commend the Canadian Food Guide. Some folks, some bureaucrats there said, they did say some very courageous things. We do not need to show milk on this as a dairy product.
It's not a category anymore.
It's wonderful.
It's great.
And the Americans need to do that as well. And then we need to start having a look at our ag agricultural subsidies, and do we need to be paying the corn and soybean farmers get subsidies so their food stocks are so cheap that when it's fed to the cattle, you can sell the burgers for $2. But again, it's just that's artificially driven down there. And so if we can start phasing out those agricultural subsidies, and let's help out the broccoli farmers and the peach growers and the folks who grow the healthy plant foods, that change. And it's going to take some slogging in Ottawa and in Victoria there, but it can be done, and the public's getting more open to that coming around.
Well, and this is where your work comes in, one of many different ways of working with the public and changing the system itself, not just having individuals make their own health decisions, which of course is important, but your work with moving medicine forward is systemic. It's looking at medical school, people who are going to be doctors. Tell me more about the book. I think it's coming out in April. Is that right?
Yes, it's coming out April 7th, though people can go to Amazon right now and pre-order a copy, which would help our algorithmic standings with Amazon. That would help us. But the book would be delivered to you April 7th, which is right around the corner here. And the first part of the book is my story here, how I came to have these understandings. The rest of the book is talking the science by what happens when you eat a cheeseburger or a slice of pepperoni pizza. What floods through your tissues? I want to give people a really solid understanding. It's one thing that meat is bad for you, but here is what happens. And this whole battalion of molecules floods through the arteries, through every tissue, every cell in your body, from, yes, the saturated fats, but the advanced glycation end products and the free radicals and the various toxins and the inflammatory molecules and new 5GC, et cetera. I go through, in fact, I call this whole flood the red tide. That's my term for what floods through your tissues with every one of these meat and dairy-based fast food meals. So the patient, I have a quote in the book from the German philosopher Goethe that says, what you know about, you see. What you know about something, you start seeing it everywhere. Well, I'm trying to get an understanding of what I want the reader to know what they're really eating, what it's doing to their bodies, and then paint a positive picture to, it's such a joy to have those sore joints stop hurting, and the asthmatic lungs stop wheezing, and the migraine headaches go away, and the bowels start moving. Well, I welcome them on their journey back to health. And then I'm talking directly to the doctors. And there's some science there behind what exactly the red tide is doing on a cellular level, so the doctors understand. And then again, I meet them. I do a chapter on a day in the disease reversal clinic. And in that chapter, I adopt the voice of the chief resident on the disease reversal service, welcoming the young doctors onto the service for a month. Here you're going to learn about disease reversal, how it works, and how you can use it in your practice when you get out into your own family practice or your own clinic, wherever that might be. And I want to give the doctors a model to find a plant-based dietitian. There's getting to be more and more of them, and make her a colleague. And I give the doctors a new model of medical practice. And I said, when you're in your practice, you're in clinic, and you're seeing the patient for the first time, be a good doctor, practice good medicine, take a medical history, do a physical exam, or do your labs, or do your scans, make a diagnosis. What does that patient have to deal with medically, and get them on the proper treatment, get them on whatever medication they need. Yes, do all that. But before you dismiss the patient at the end of the appointment, hand her or him the contact information for a plant-based dietitian. She anywhere in the province, will work. Make a telemedicine consultation with her. She's going to talk to you about what to eat. She's going to send you handouts. She's going to give you videos to watch. If you're in town, she might meet you at the supermarket, take you shopping there. You eat plant-based like she's telling you for the next month. You come back and see me in a month. Let's see if you're not leaner and healthier, and we'll talk about you off some of these medications that you're on. And so we've been keeping the dietitians at arm's length. I'm saying bring her on or him onto the treatment team. In my slide presentation at the end, I have a slide saying, knowing how reversible the majority of the chronic diseases are that you, doctor, are going to spend your medical careers treating. You want to heal these patients, or you just want to manage their chronic disease. You just want to manage their diabetes. You just want to manage their high blood pressure. You'll leave medicine. It's a dismal way to practice medicine. You want to heal these patients, then get real about why they're sitting in front of you in this body, overweight, diabetic, hypertensive, atherosclerotic, and inflamed, from what they're running through their arteries every 4 hours. Help them on that level, and you will see the most magnificent, magical transformation in all of medicine. So that's the invitation from the book. We've got lots of resources, how to work with plant-based dietitians, how to work with health coaches. Bless them, that's such an important role to have somebody you can call about how to steam broccoli. Your doctor doesn't have time to tell you, but the health coach does. And I wrote this with my co-author, Glenn Mercer, a lovely, witty fellow. And it was largely he's a long-term passionate vegan. And the last chapter is entitled, It Just So Happens. And it's just a lovely list of, it just so happens that the very same plant-based diet that Dr. Klaper is espousing will also help heal the forest. Mm-hmm. As the trees grow, they take carbon dioxide out of the air, turn into solid wood, and reverse global warming. It just so happens that the very same diet will also help obliterate world hunger because this much less land is needed. Yada. It just so happens. And it's
That's great.
A lovely way to end the book, to give the reader when they close the book, yes, it's time to go plant-based. And I'm going to give a copy of this to my doctor next time I see that.
That's super powerful. Glenn was on the podcast with Chef AJ probably about a year ago, maybe even further than that. Yeah, it's really good to see you guys doing work together. He's awesome, mm-hmm. As are you, obviously. Where do you kind of see this going in the next year? So your book's coming out. You've been doing this work now specifically in moving medicine forward for 4 years. Mm-hmm. What's next for you?
Well, our nonprofit organization, Moving Medicine Forward, has a newsletter called the Forward Report. Mm-hmm. And it comes out once a month. And you bet, every month, as we're riding herd on these 53 medical schools, we're going to be giving the public a report. Here's what's happening. Here's what they're shaping up. Here's what's the dean of the medical school is thinking, et cetera, et cetera. So we're certainly going to be a reporter as well as an energy center for this transition that really has to happen, getting nutrition into medical education. Got a lot of work to do on that score. Some of the cynical professors say, well, the medical school curriculum is so crowded. What course should we drop, doctor, to get your nutrition course in there? I said, no, the important idea here that you don't drop anything. Now, nutrition should be woven into every one of the basic science. The first 2 years you do basic science in medical school, anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. Talk about the anatomy and focus on the anatomy of the intestinal system. Physiology, focus on the function of the digestive system. Biochemistry, it's obvious how it turns food into energy. Pathology, how these diseases develop. Well, they're all nutrition-based diseases these days. Mm-hmm. So part of the first 2 years of medical school, and then the second 2 years when you rotate through the clinical rotations, obstetrics, delivering babies. Well, these women are eating all the junk food. They're getting gestational diabetes. They've got babies so big they have to have cesarean section. There should be nutrition rounds on every obstetric service. Then pediatrics, the kids are getting obese. They're getting diabetes. There should be nutrition rounds in every pediatric service. Internal medicine, good heavens, all the that's all nutrition. So it should be woven into every aspect of medical education. So that's what we're trying to create. And it's going to take a lot of work and input into these various schools, but we're coming up with a template that they can all use. And again, we're turning that ocean liner, but they're open to it. And we can't be cynical. We're at the early stages here, but there's an old saying that when the dog plays the violin, don't criticize the quality of the playing. the fact they're playing it all is wonderful. And the fact that they're open to even these 10 hours a year, that's great. It's a step. It's a very important first step. So we're going to be reporting to the folks and riding hard on these folks to get this done. So I can go bird watching and bike riding. I shouldn't have to be doing this. Truth of it is, it should already be part of education, but it's the lot that you and I have both been given, and it's blessed work, and we're just going to keep at it. And we are totally dependent upon donations. We get no money from the med schools. We get no money from the camp, from the students. This is solely based on donations. If people would like to make a tax-deductible donation on our website, movingmedforward.org, you can click on our donation page there. That would be greatly appreciated as well.
Excellent. Well, keep up your incredible work, Dr. Klaper. So great to speak with you. Thank you so much. Fantastic to learn about the work you're doing. Absolute institution in plant-based medicine and in veganism overall. So thank you so much.
Indeed. Thank you, Karina. You did a great job. You're an excellent interviewer, and this is such an important program. Keep that voice loud, clear, and strong. Really appreciate you and what you do.
Thanks so much. Dr. Klaper, thank you again for joining me on the show. Connect with Dr. Klaper and support his Moving Medicine Forward initiative at our show notes, nobullshitvegan.com/223. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to the No Bullshit Vegan podcast at nobullshitvegan.com.